Hello and welcome to Conversations to Inspire. Today we have got the wonderful Alba Gomez joining us. Welcome, Alba.
Thank you, Kim, for having me.
Wonderful. Now, Alba is based in Western Australia, but she originates in Colombia. So I'm really interested to learn more about her journey to Australia. And she is a personal brand coach, a body language specialist, and she does executive coaching and professional image consultancy, along with a few other things that we'll find about today. So, Alba, you are in Perth in beautiful Western Australia now, but that is not where you originated. So tell me, Alba, how did you manage to come from Colombia and end up in Perth in Australia?
Yes. So it's been already 19 years since I arrived. And the reason I came here is because my ex-husband, who was back then my boyfriend, when we met in Colombia, he's Colombian, he was moving to Perth. So he had been doing his PhD in Japan. He's a dentist for many years. And when we met, he was already having plans to move to Australia. We fell in love. And that's it. I follow him here. I left my life, my career, everything, and my family, my country that I absolutely adore, and follow him here. And that's it. It's been 19 years now.
My very first guest on the podcast was a wonderful lady, Sheila Mann, who lives in Bali now, but she moved from Argentina following love as well to end up in Australia. So I'm seeing a theme in my podcast guests here. So when you do such a huge shift like that, how was that? Were you just sort of young and carefree and thought, yes, this is an adventure? Or was there quite a bit of decision making that goes into that sort of change?
No, actually, for me, I fell in love. And I am a very organized things person. I think through. I love my country. I had a great life there. I just fell in love, and that's what I wanted the most at that point in my life. And it happened that love was gonna be in Australia. So literally without much thinking and literally analyzing the situation, I made the decision and I moved here. But the thing is, I arrived in Australia and then I realized there were a couple of things I should consider first. I didn't speak the language, I couldn't speak English. I didn't have friends, I didn't understand much about the culture, and I didn't realize the impact of changing my life from being an independent professional woman in my hometown compared to what I was going to be alive, like an English student person with no independence and ability to communicate. So I literally got the shock of my life. And I went through the worst 2 years of my life and hated every bit of Perth for those 2 years.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, isn't it? When we don't
Oh, wow. If I
think
had
too hard.
known.
So you had a professional life in Colombia, and what
Yes.
were you doing there, Alba?
So I am an engineer, a production engineer. So I actually had a very successful career. I was working at a company that I really like. I was doing great work. I was just, learning so much, had a great position. So yes, that's what I was doing. And I have all my family and all my friends. Until then I was 26 back then. So yeah, it was like I had a perfect life. Everything was going well. I just saw this man, fell in love, crazy when I made this decision and had to start from below zero in Perth.
Yes.
So that was probably, I would say now looking back, the worst and the best thing that I could have done.
Yes. So you made the shift to Australia, and then looking at what you're doing now, there seems to be quite a change from your profession as well. So was it part of that trying to find your new life in Australia that caused the change in profession, or how did you go from being an engineer, which I think of as being quite a process-driven, logical type of role, to personal branding, image consultancy, which for me it sounds very creative and
Yes.
feminine.
You know what? I think I'm a different person now to who I used to be. And I have changed so many times as well within the last 19 years in Australia. I guess situations, circumstances, people, the environment we are at changes a lot. I guess I did engineering because my two sisters did, and I liked it and I enjoyed it. But when I came to Australia and after going through the process of learning English and then getting recognized as an engineer and working as an engineer, I noticed that that wasn't me anymore at that time, and that I wanted to express myself creatively, which I've always been a very creative person as well. I'm like half and half. So I got to a place in my life where, yeah, it actually came actually with the conclusion of my first marriage, in which I realized, you know what, everything is changing. I have changed so much. I'm not thriving. I'm a very passionate person. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not passionate about my job. I want to try something different. So I literally went into a process of really getting to know myself and understand myself and being brave to see what I wanted. And that's what I made that decision to leave my career behind and do something completely different.
And did you do that with a bold move, or did you do it slowly? Because a lot of people, I think we find, especially after the pandemic, are starting to have those sorts of questions. Do I really love what I'm doing? Is there more for me? Do I want to follow things that really align more with what I'm passionate about? But changing money is that big catch, isn't it, when we have a profession? So did you sort of cut those ties, or did you slowly ease into another career?
So I went to a retreat in Bali for 5 days. And the day I got on that plane, I had no intentions of changing anything in my life apart from my personal relationship with my ex husband. I was going for that, but I came back with a bigger decision that I had made. So no, I literally, while I was in the retreat, we were singing to this song that if you were brave, what would you do? And I sleep it and I said I would resign to my job. And then from that moment, the whole retreat became all about when would I would resign. I'm like, no, 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 cannot do. I need to think about this. But I came back and that same day I resigned. So it was very impulsive. However, my boss wouldn't let me go immediately. He's like, no, you cannot do this to me. So even though I made the decision like super quickly, I stayed working like within probably 9 to 10 months part time. So I went to working 3 days, then 2 days, then one day, which allowed me to start setting up my business on the side a little bit slowly, which now I appreciate because then again, I had no idea how to do a business in Australia. I had a business coach, of course, but at the same time, I was not intellectually ready for the challenge that was about to start in my life. So yeah, it was another rush decision that ended up being taken a little bit slowly.
Which is probably good. And I've done similar with my career, going part-time and then finally sort of cutting those ties. And it's frustrating whilst you're waiting. It's sort of like, if you are a passionate person, you want to go now, let's do it now. But a bit like you, I had no idea what was involved behind the scenes. All the creative side seems like fun, but there's the reality that you have to turn that creativity into a business. So,
Exactly.
what was your first iteration of your own business?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn these notifications off. So, okay, so I started working with this business coach, which was actually one of the ladies that was running the retreat in Bali. So I went there with my life coach, and then I ended up working with this business coach. They both were running the business, so she was helping me through these exercises of really seeing what I was good at, and obviously, something that has come always naturally to me is everything related to image. Since I was a little girl, I grew up with a lot of self-esteem and, self-image issues. And I used my image very early on to put on a mask that made me feel confident. So I learned how to, at 13, I was a professional makeup artist. I learned how to do hair, and I had a natural eye for putting clothes together. So I started studying all about it since I was very young. And I grew up helping all my aunties and friends to get ready for parties and interviews. So it was like a natural inclination for that. So when we thought about a business, she said, what would you do that you didn't have to get paid for? I'm like, I've been doing this for like 10 years already of my life. Let's do this. So that's when I went and got again further studies into image consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And I started my business as an image consultant, which I loved and enjoyed for a time. So that was the first stage of my business. And it was incredibly scary because then I realized, oh my God, there's so many other people doing the same as me. This is actually a career in Australia. I can live out of this. But it was also so exciting to realize that I could do something that I enjoyed so much. So that was stage one of my change of careers.
How did you find, because I know, and I think I've heard it from other people too, once you start going down the rabbit hole of creating your own business or doing what you're passionate about, and it needs to become a business, not simply a hobby, And then you look around, and as you mentioned there are so many other people doing it. There is that tendency, I know for myself, it's like, oh, there's so many people that do that, or so many people, how many millions of podcasts are there? Why would I do that? Did you have that moment of sort of
Of
trying to
course.
work through that?
Of course. And then I realized there were so many people doing it. They were doing it so well. And obviously, the fear, you compare yourself, you think you're not good enough, imposter syndrome. I think we all go through that in our careers or businesses. I guess I was lucky enough to have people around me, like including my business coach and my life coach, that really helped me just kind of get those thoughts under control and really understanding to this day. I understand that no matter there's another million enough people there out there doing the same as you do, there's enough people for you, because people will buy from you. And obviously, as specializing in personal branding, it's all about people connecting with you as a human being, an individual with your unique experiences. Nobody there out there is Alba Gomez. Even though they can be born on the same day in Colombia with the same name, they won't have the same strengths, weaknesses, and life experiences I have. So then again, going back to the personal branding that I understand it so well, that's what I love it so much, because it's there about really honing in into who you are and what makes you you, and then using that as your point of difference. So I learned that lesson quite quickly, and I was able to continue moving forward. I didn't stop having the fear, but I started putting myself out there in spite of the fear, and then that's how I kept growing and learning and finding my space.
And personal branding, because some people, the initial idea of personal branding is maybe how you look,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like there's a lot of mindset and confidence and all of that behind personal branding. And so how do you work that into the work that you're doing with people, and how does that marry up with the outside? And I
Yeah.
just would like to note, for those who are listening on Spotify who might not be watching on YouTube, we are both in a very similar shade of green and gold jewelry. So I'd just like to give a high five to myself for my personal branding here, as guided by Alba, it would seem.
Yes, we are both in green. And you look lovely.
Thank you.
So yeah, so it was really early then when I started working with image consultancy and helping people with their external image, that I realized there were so many pieces lost there, and that I didn't want to be working with people on putting a band-aid in a massive wound, which I did with myself. As I mentioned initially, I started learning about how to look good, and I'm doing here for those listening, like, yeah, in between, kind of, how do you
Rabbit
call this?
ears, I think we
Yes,
call them.
like it's
Yes.
just in between the things, like, yeah, just looking good. But if you don't work in other areas, changing how you look won't change anything. And I'm all about for deep, real life transformation. So it was through my experience working with clients that I realized, well, there's a massive component here of self-image, of confidence, of how you communicate through your body language, of how you feel about yourself, of how the world sees you, of your life experiences. And that took me back to my own personal experience and how I use, as I said before, my image to put a mask. I felt I was doing that to my clients. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that to them, because I know so much better now. And I have gone myself in my own personal self-discovery and spiritual awakening for, Jesus, 30 years now. I'm old. So I know so much better than this. And that's when I decided to create my own approach. And I was probably one of the, not the first, but in between the first couple of years of personal branding, when personal branding wasn't even a thing more than 12 years ago, that I started creating this concept. And then I realized that was called personal branding now out there in the world. And I thought, okay, I am unique. I have my stories, I have my experience, I have my knowledge. I am going to create a system that works on people's personal brand from my own perspective. So what personal brand is, as a general definition, is what people think of you when they hear your name. Is your reputation. It's your how you coming across in the world. Your image, yes, one element out of seven for me. So your image, and for me, I call your image the icing on the cake. I work on the image last now, so I don't work as an image consultant much more anymore. It is an element, and if a person needs guidance and help with that, yes, definitely we get there. But we need to start at the beginning with who you are and with your mindset. So that's step number one: really understanding how have you got to where you are today? Because today your life is the result of how you see yourself and what you can think you can achieve or not. So for me, in order to present that incredible image externally of who you are and what you can achieve, you need to start. So I call it communication in and communication out. So we need to start with all the communication and inner thoughts. So what are your life experiences? How much are you at peace with where you've been? What do we need to get rid of your mind? What are I call it like the weeds on your mind that are not letting the real success grow? What is the relationship with your family? We have so much wounds there, all of us, no matter how loving our parents are. We are the result of our experiences early in childhood. I became fascinated with neuroscience and I started studying that. So that's how kind of I went so much deeper into just the clothes you wear, because that to me, as I say, is important, but it's just an external communication element. Is again putting the band-aid in a massive wound that it won't change anything. So I went and created a system with 7 pillars that take a person in a journey that I think it will apply to every single individual that really want to take their life to the next level, of really be more aligned with who they are, into really looking at yourself from the inside out, and then just creating an external perception of who you are that is so authentic and is so real and is so aligned that with who you are, that you cannot help but transform your life. And that's what really excites me.
That does sound exciting. And so, what type of people are looking for help with that? Because I'm sure everybody would benefit from
Mm-hmm.
all of those levels, even if they're not looking for personal branding per se, looking to
Absolutely.
become more confident and communicate who they are in an authentic way. But who do you find comes looking for that sort of assistance?
I think, unfortunately, we just come to realize that this is something we want to invest the money and the time where we have massive changes in our lives. So, people changing careers, people wanting to get now ready and desperate to get to the next level financially or in positions, people going through divorces, people moving countries. So, bigger changes, turning 30, 40, 50, 60.
Yes.
So, big challenges that when we go through those changes in life, we think, oh, that old version of me is not serving me anymore. I need like to reinvent myself. So it's kind of like a reinvention. And I always love it. And I always, when people tell me their stories, it's fascinating. I just feel so honored to have been able to be part of so many people's lives. And when people tell me their stories and I hear how they are struggling through the moment they're going through, I get so excited because I know how much growth is waiting for them if they choose to go deeper with the transformation. So I guess it's that when we are uncomfortable with the place we're at or we wanting more from life, that's when people tend to then go through this, choose to go through this personal branding transformation in the way that I do it. Because then again, each personal brand specialist or consultant or, coach will have their own approach to personal branding.
Exactly. And do you find that you work with women in leadership positions? Because that's something that I used to
Yes.
do years ago, not necessarily from a personal branding, but from communication and confidence. And that even though we have so many female leaders now and so many women who are just, rocking it up there at the top, I find there is so much of that imposter syndrome still
Every single
happening.
one.
Yeah,
Every single one, no
yeah.
matter how successful they are.
It
We
always
have the same
surprises
fears.
me. Yeah, yeah. Well, it
It's
doesn't surprise
incredible.
me, but it's
Yeah.
the most confident person who is in the highest position, and then you catch them in a moment, and they have those same doubts. So, do you work with women who are in those leadership roles, and what are maybe 2 or 3 sort of suggestions or general elements that you tend to find help women who are in
Yeah.
leadership to become more comfortable in their leadership?
I think the first one is the one we're just discussing, understanding that this happens to all of us. It
Mm.
doesn't really matter how far ahead in their careers, how successful, how well put together, how all the plays in place in their lives. I was reading a study the other day, and it was all about this, and it was like even Oprah, Jennifer Lopez, like the women that we just get so inspired, Michelle Obama. These women feel exactly the same way. So first of all, is understanding that it's normal to feel that way, which normalizes the feeling and makes you feel a little bit less special, making yourself feel like, oh my God, I'm the only one struggling with this. So I think that's great. Makes you feel like a little bit like, okay, it's normal to feel this. So I don't make it bigger than it actually is. Second of all, is I would say stop comparing yourself to others as well.
That's a hard one
So
to do.
yes, that's a hard one, and especially in this age and time where we are exposed to so much
Mm,
comparison elements and what we see. So stop comparing your progress, because one of the things with imposter syndrome is that fear that we're gonna be found out with not so good. So good, like what? Like this other person you think you are. So just being more gentle compassionate and loving with yourself, and understanding that you're giving your best and you are not meant to be perfect.
Mm.
And you need to stop comparing yourself today, because comparing yourself is just stealing and robbing that energy that you could be putting on what you can contribute.
Mm.
And I think the last one, which was very interesting for me when I realized that when I grew up Catholic, but I'm not very, very religious anymore. And then the coach that I trained with, she was full on Christian. And very interesting combination of a Christian person in my eyes, because super woman into luxury and living life like in an incredible level of abundance, and believe a very Christian. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting, very spiritual woman. And she taught me so much about God. And one of the things that she taught us, that one of the biggest lessons, was that really understanding that it's very egocentric to think that this is you only. Like, we
Mm.
are part of something so much bigger, and is, let's say, whatever you want to call it, in universal intelligence, God, angels, whatever you want to call it, working through you. And
Mm.
just really having that humbling experience that is something bigger that is acting through you, that is contributing in a way that you can only do. And sometimes it's happened to me, like sometimes I go back and listen or read things that I said or wrote, and I'm like, wow,
That's
was that
good.
me? Like, that's good. I don't even remember, like, you know what I mean? And,
Yes.
and then it gives us, I think, two things: that humbling feeling that you're not alone doing it, and it's not your ego, you is you accessing to that Einstein brain, higher intelligence, however you want to call it, but also that makes you feel supported, that
Mm.
there's something bigger that is acting through you, so you're not alone doing this. And I think, sounds simple, sounds a little bit woohoo for some people, but I think it's so powerful. Just remember, and I actually, since then, I have a practice in which I always ask, and even when I do things like this today, I ask God. I let's say I call it God. I believe in universal intelligence, all of it. Say, act through me and just help me say things in the way that I can have a positive impact in the most people. So
Yeah.
this is not me thinking, Alba, hey, come on, you need to do this perfect, you need to give your best. No, I'm just asking for higher intelligence guidance, and please just allow me to communicate and say the things in a way in which I can help others, contribute, have an impact, which are things that are important to me through my business.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. It does help take the burden off. And I think if you are a driven woman or a very, you know, type A personality who
I
wants
am.
to get things done, you do take on that burden of getting it right. And it's all your responsibility to help
It's
others
very
or to,
heavy,
oh, it's hard. It is so, and it's exhausting.
exhausting.
Yes, it exhausts. It reminds me, many years ago, I did some volunteer work in Ubud teaching English to teenagers, which was totally out of my comfort zone. And I spent the first week just so stressed because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't seem to be doing it the right way. They weren't doing it the right way as how I'd been trained to teach them. You know, it was all this stuff. And it wasn't until one day I realized, or had like an epiphany, that it wasn't actually about me. It was all about them. And what did
Exactly.
they want? And all they wanted, all the teenagers I was teaching wanted, was to spend time with an English speaking person and learn about Australia and have a laugh and have a bit of learning at the same time. They didn't need me to be a perfect teacher. They didn't
Exactly.
need me to have the schedule and the agenda and the right teaching materials. They just wanted my time. And once I really realized that, all the stress went and I was able to actually have fun with it. So, yeah,
Super powerful.
it
And
is.
you said something there that I guess we can include in this top three, that is kind of like three and a half, but it's kind of part of the three we've been talking, is letting go the idea that we have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that is a hard one. It's a hard one because it comes from the way we were brought up. It's a cultural thing, and it's like, who says we have to get it perfect and right every single time? And it's this fear, and it puts this extra pressure, and it kills the joy, and it kills the passion. Like, most of the people that I end up working with, they say, I have like my passion for life back. And I think part of that is regaining your ability to understand you can be perfect, you don't have to get it right, and that you're more in touch with who you are. Who you are is meant to be imperfect. You're not a god or a goddess. You're a
Yeah.
human being,
Yeah.
imperfect human being. And we focus so much on doing and getting it right, that we forget that we are meant to be in the present and learning. And if you don't know an answer, say you get back to them, because you can figure it out later. If you make a mistake, apologize and fix it. Like, I don't think, apart from that, there's nothing that cannot be worked on. So we take it too seriously. We put way too much pressure of us, and we expect to be perfect. And by that, I think we just ruin our chances of succeeding, and actually we kill all the joy of life
Oh,
and work.
definitely, definitely. And then the sad thing is that most of that time, that quest or that belief we need to be perfect is only coming from us most of the time, unless we have some really awful people in our life. Most of the
Yes,
time, others
it's
don't even expect it.
self-imposed.
Yeah,
It is self-imposed. Yeah.
yeah. One of the other things, taking another segue into another area that I've seen, is women who are in leadership roles and who, because of being in that leadership role or management, have to be quite assertive or quite somewhat masculine in their approach. But they also feel then they're losing a bit of their femininity. And how do we blend the feminine side and still enjoying, makeup and fashion and being soft and compassionate with that more masculine tendencies? And I'm not talking necessarily male tendencies, but those
I know.
masculine aspects.
Energy of achieving and doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Love
yeah,
that question. Love this topic. Could answer this for 7 days in a row.
wonderful.
But let's say, wow, where to begin? Okay, so I come from a country when femininity is embraced, when women are in power and have been for years. So for me, when I came to Australia, it was quite interesting to see this kind of like not acceptance of the feminine and the masculine energy all in one. We're talking
Mm.
about energies again. Let's quickly describe and get everybody on the same page. Feminine energy is the energy that receives, that flows, that creates, that expands. Masculine energy is the energy that gets things done, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So as women, we must be empowered on our feminine energy. We must, because it's the most powerful, beautiful energy that creates life. I'm not even going to go deeper into that, but powerful energy. Then what we need to do is use the masculine energy in service to the feminine. Many women get lost, and this is not a judgment. It's happened to me in the past, so I can speak with a lot of knowing that I know what I'm talking about because I did it. I am actually, even though I don't look, I'm a very masculine uh, energy person because I am an engineer. I'm logic. I am a doer. I'm a type A. So you see me feminine, but I am 99% masculine, and I have had to learn how to let my feminine energy balance, so then when I get things done, I achieve incredible things as opposed to burning or losing who I am in the process. So how do we do this? Many different ways. 100% you need and must, if that is your style, look feminine. There's a way of doing things. So I have probably, I'm not in my most masculine, I'm not in my most feminine, but I'm probably feminine-ish with the style of my neckline and the earrings I'm wearing. My straight hair gives a little bit more of credibility. So let's talk about credibility and approachability in this case, instead of feminine and masculine credibility. Let's call it like the masculine energy, femininity, the credible. So I am a talker, I am warm, I move my hands, I smile a lot. So that let's call my approachable energy. I need to balance at work when I need to come across as that strong leadership in a leadership position woman. I need to balance that with the colors I wear, with how I do my hair, with how much makeup I use, with the accessories I use. I will never compromise on looking feminine, but I know how to balance.
Right.
So I'm not going to show up in frills, in pink, with curly hair. I'm not saying any of these things are wrong. I'm just talking about a feminine hair, feminine makeup, feminine color, feminine style, feminine attitude equals at a person that comes across to feminine, not taken seriously. But I can do the credible version, still sticking to my femininity, and I will always be wearing colors, and I will always be this expressive person. Then again, my body language, I can adjust the way I use. So instead of moving and smiling so much, I can stay in a more stable position. I can make my voice more neutral. I can use my body language to send a message in a way, the way I say it and the way I am using my body language for things to sound more credible. So I can use the tone of my voice and how I use my body language, as I said, plus how I dress, plus the way I say the things I say, to still communicate a message in exactly the same way as opposite of if I'm here just moving and I'm wearing
Mm.
pink, you know what I mean? So we can adjust our body language and our image. And then again, I have heard it so many times. As I said, I work with so many women in leadership. It's like, let's say, like I just sometimes need to be a bitch. And it becomes a hard balance in which you have to put yourself into a into a, then again, it's a mask because it's not who you are. But there are so many ways, and I have shared this message with so many women who have implemented it with success, in which you can simply adjust how you present yourself and how you say things, and understanding who you're talking to, so you can then deliver the message in a way that they will understand it in a credible way, to create credibility without compromising who you are. It's
Oh.
understanding that there's a science out there. How do you apply the science to who you are and how you come across, so you can make little tweaks to how you communicate and present without compromising into who you are.
Oh, I love that. And that really does still allow you to be authentic to who you are, but it's that
100%.
self-awareness around, okay, if I wear my hair or my clothes like this, that will provide that sort of image to someone else, or will communicate something without me even speaking. It's communicating a
Exactly.
certain level of approachability, a certain level of credibility. So how do I balance that out in other ways, either by the way I
Exactly.
talk,
It's understanding the
communicate?
science.
Yeah, fascinating. It reminds me many, many years ago, way too long to mention, in the early days of my original career, someone said, or I read it somewhere, dress to the level that you aspire to be.
Yes.
And I remember doing that. I was always very conscious in the area that I worked. Most people didn't really wear makeup much or dress. I always had an idea I wanted to be a manager, and I would go into work and dress to the level that I aspired to be. And
Yep.
not only did I do I think that helps in how people look at you and perceive you, but it impacted how I felt about myself.
Absolutely. And this doesn't, we're not talking about wearing black, because I'm the
No.
first one who say you don't need to wear black ever. And this doesn't mean you need to look like a man or compromise in many things. Is presenting yourself, understanding that the clothes you wear send a message. People are making judgments about who you are. And I can tell you the amount of companies I have worked with in which I am just refining, help, they hire me to help their staff refine not their intellectual capabilities. We are mostly capable and intelligent, but how people are not managing their presence.
Yes.
And that can be from a confidence point of view, image as in clothing, or body language and communication. And that's where most human beings are lacking, because we don't dedicate enough time and effort in learning these tools and the science. So usually it's not that you need to do more courses. No, it's like you need to become more confident. You need to sell yourself better. You need to communicate the value, bring it to the table. You need to present yourself and look the part.
And once you learn what works for you, it feels comfortable anyway. I think in the
And
beginning,
it empowers you.
yes. And for some women and men, I think we're mainly talking women here, for some women, they feel very uncomfortable in their body or their skin. But simply by learning how to present your way in your best way, at whatever
Yes,
size, shape, or look you have,
absolutely.
you come across as more confident and you just feel good about yourself, which
Yeah,
naturally then makes you seem more credible and more approachable.
I always start the process with this. Like as I said, body image is one of the biggest. It was my issue that I didn't like anything about me, and it's kind of like understanding and accepting how you look, learning how to make the most out of who you are today. You know, when you lose the 20 kilos, or when you were born in a next life taller or darker or lighter or with different eye color, it's like accepting. As I said, like I know you see me now, you think, what is she talking about? I was bullied because I was too skinny. So it's kind of like, you never know people's stories, and you never know people's struggles. No woman I have met has ever come to me, the most incredible, stunning looking women, to the one that looks completely opposite in her eyes, has come to me saying, look, I'm perfect. No woman. We all focus on our imperfections and make and get obsessed with it and beat ourselves up for it and lose power and energy through it. So step number one is really embracing how you are, who you are, intellectually, spiritually, and where you are at in life and how your body looks. And from there, like learning how to make the most out of who you are. And an attractive woman is a woman who owns confidently how she looks and who she is, and knows how to make the best out of her beautiful body that she has.
Exactly. What a wonderful way to wrap up our discussion, Alba. I love that. So, learning who you are, learning how to make the most of who you are, and how to balance those energies of the feminine flow and creativity and compassion with those masculine energies, and that we can all do that, whether we tend to be more of a feminine person or more of a masculine. We can learn how to make choices during our day in different environments, because sometimes, like you say, it calls for us to step into our masculine, and other times there's need for us to step more into our feminine. But if we know who we are and can understand how we present ourselves, then we have so much more choice in life, I think. And that really is what
More
personal
opportunities.
branding helps with.
Yes, it is. It's personal branding gives you visibility. And the more
Mm.
visible you are, not just physically and how you communicate, is like it's a choice. As women, also, we're very scared of being visible because the more visible we are, the more criticized we are. But we don't realize that people are judging you anyway. So you go and be visible, find your people, and be visible to the opportunities that are meant for you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Alba. I'm sure everyone has taken away several bits of tips and information today. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everybody gets just really that moment in which I call it an aha moment, in which you realize nothing much more than you loving and accepting who you are and deciding to be visible. That's all you need to do.
One last thing, I will put it in the show notes, but where can people find out more about you?
Yes, you can go to my website, albagomez.com.au, and there's plenty of free resources and online courses. And you can send me an email if this is an area that you would like to explore, or if you have any questions. I would love to hear what you got out of today's conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Bye.
Bye.